European Heather.
We're in a new place.
I know.
I'm sitting on the floor. This is a suitcase that is still yet to be unpacked.
Oh,
Um, Not mine, but nonetheless, we're in a new place in a new
yeah.
zone. It's evening for me,
Oh, yeah, that's right. So it's noon here,
and it's
and well, a little after, and it's what 5:15 where you are?
6:15.
6:15. Okay. I know you're always either 5 or 6 hours ahead.
I'm so
So
tired.
that's okay. You're getting used to
Yeah.
a new time zone still. So
So it should be a good chat today. We're talking about
yeah.
Pinterest strategies, and
Yeah.
um, you sent me some of your thoughts on this the other day ahead of time because you're
Yep.
so prepared. But basically, the topic and the title of the video is how we do boards for our own accounts.
Yep.
And I just so happened to publish a board strategy update video yesterday. So if anyone's interested in like board best practices and updates for 2025, that's a great video. And then
Yeah.
there's also we'll plug the playlist into the description afterwards for boards because I have
Yeah,
all
because we're probably not going to answer like all the basic board, like board 101 questions,
yeah.
Pinterest board 101 questions in this video. This is more going to be like steal our strategies. So if people need the basics, they can go to that playlist and that video that you just mentioned, the new one, and we'll put that, like you said, in the description. So good.
Works. That works. You'll be able to visit and view any of the board strategy, that you want to learn about in
Yeah.
that description, that playlist
Yeah.
later on. So, Jana, how about you kick us off this week? Because I'm a little tired.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. No problem. I'm just thinking the reason I'm kind of giggling is because I'm wondering if there are people who are watching this now live or on the replay thinking like Pinterest board strategy. Okay, so there's a strategy behind boards. And the answer is yes,
Yeah.
100% yes. So I will share a little bit about the board strategy that I use for my own account and what I used during the 6, 7 years, going on 7 years that I did done for you Pinterest setups for coaches and service providers and worked behind the scenes on their Pinterest marketing and their content strategy for all those years. So and actually it's really interesting because the board strategy and the content strategy are very much aligned.
Yeah.
So I'll explain what I mean by that in a minute. One thing I'm super curious about, Heather, is I know that in the video that you just published, one of the ones that we'll be putting in the description, I noticed that you said that Pinterest is kind of like giving new advice, if you will, about how they want you to use boards in
Yeah.
your strategy, right? As a marketer, right? Not just as a user, but as a marketer.
Mhm.
Okay. So I'll be curious, and you can let me know if what I'm about to share with you is in alignment with how they think about it, or not necessarily how they think about it, but how they're suggesting that how they want us to use boards moving forward. Um, I think it is, and I think it's probably just like different language that we use as marketers versus a lot of the language from Pinterest tends to be like a little softer and maybe a little bit more geared toward it's always about user experience, which of course we always need to be considering too as marketers. So anyway, I'll be curious what you think about that.
Yeah.
So for my board strategies for years, the way I've always done it is I start with my keyword strategy. So I create a keyword list, like a keyword master list. So I have one for my own Pinterest board, my own Pinterest strategy.
Mhm.
So, and then I also would create one whenever I had a new done for you client, I would create a very strategic keyword plan for them, a master keyword plan. It's not complicated, it's just very strategic. And really what that was just a list of lots of long tail keywords. Long tail keywords is a phrase, right? Two or three words strung together in a keyword phrase that people are searching for in your space that you have content about.
Yeah.
Um, and then what we would do once we had a list of all that, because we did keyword research very systematically in the way that I teach it, to find those keywords. You're so funny. Just want to remind everyone who might be joining us that Heather has just moved herself and her family to Europe. So if you see her yawning, it's not that she's completely bored with me. It's just that she
No.
is adjusting time zones. Um, so we would then take that long list, maybe it's 3 pages long on a Google Doc or 4 or 5 pages long on a Google Doc, and we'd go through those. And what I would do to find my boards is I would find things that are kind of like broader categories that are the categories that kind of all the other keywords fall under. Sometimes, rule of thumb wise, I'm looking for shorter long tail keywords. Again, not always, but sometimes because a shorter long tail keyword with maybe just two phrases
Yeah.
might be kind of like, think of it like like boards are kind of like file folders. So you might be
Hmm.
like, okay, you're going to file this, all these other smaller, more specific long tail keywords under this bigger long tail keyword. And I'll try to think of an example so that this actually comes to real life for people. And then I would also compare, and so I would grab some of those and bring them to the top of the list.
Hmm.
But then I would also, before I decided if that those were going to be the boards, I would also look at the person's blog posts, their content strategy, and all the content that they were planning on pinning, right? Or that
Hmm.
I'm planning on pinning for them when if I'm doing a done for you Pinterest setup. And I would make sure that there's at least two, if not three or four is more, even more ideal, pieces of content that would fit onto each board.
Hmm.
Um, so in my course, the way I teach this is you could either look at your existing content to make sure, or you could look at your content plan. And I help people develop content plans inside of high leverage content. So the two are related in that way, like I mentioned a few minutes ago. And make sure that you're going to have, you already have, or you're going to have at least two minimum two pieces of content right now to put on that board.
Hmm.
And then if you only have one or you have none, then that's not going to be a good board for you right away. You could create it down the road, but for now, it's not going to be the highest priority, right? And then what I would do is I would take those highest priority long tail keywords that are at the top of my list that are kind of like larger categories or buckets, and that I have enough content for to create a whole board for right now that I'm going to pin to over the next, couple of weeks or whatever. And I would turn those into the boards, right? Then there's like this cleaning up your current board strategy that we can talk about another time because you
Yeah.
don't always have to create brand new boards. There might be a board that already is on that topic, but you might like re-optimize it by choosing a different title.
Hmm.
Um, I think that that strategy is still very aligned with user experience because by choosing keywords that you know people are searching for and that you have good content to put on that board, you're thinking if you another way to say that is like this is content people actually are searching for because we're not going to find keywords in our keyword research process
Yeah.
if they're not being searched for, then they're not keywords if they're not being searched for, right? So this is something people want and need and are looking for on Pinterest. And now I'm going to meet that user need by pinning really good content that I have, quality content to that board. So I think that's very aligned with like making sure your user experience is good. And that's always been the strategy that I've used kind of out of the gate. So
Yeah.
yeah, any thoughts,
Yeah. So
Miss Pinterest expert?
I do all the same things. I follow kind of the same wavelength.
Hmm.
I don't care as much about the two pieces of content on a board thing because we always add a board cover anyways. So like at least a blog post and a board cover. Now, most of the people in my circle have so much content.
Hmm. Right.
It's
That's
fine.
the difference, is my people don't always have all that content.
Yeah.
So yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. So if you're definitely like in the capsule content frame of mind with Jana right now and you're adding Pinterest in as a layer, then I think that's a really good rule of thumb
Hmm.
to follow.
Yeah.
I would agree.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
I don't
Awesome.
always have a lot of content for topics though, and this is one of the best practices that Pinterest just updated, and that was if you feel like it's a fit for your audience and you don't have anything on it, you can always curate. So Pinterest is basically saying, "Hey, it's okay if you pin other people's content too." Now, I know I'm going to get this question and I get it all the time. Do we have to pin other people's content? No.
Yep.
No. You can simply just worry about yourself, get into a workflow and a consistency for yourself for a while. But I do find it useful at times to pin other people's content, especially if it's topics I see that are popular on Pinterest, like website design is really
Hmm.
popular. And oftentimes I'll get questions about these things, and I like to have places to send people. So I will go find a handful of pins on a topic. I'll go through to the endpoint and make sure that they are, reputable and they actually seem like they know what they're talking about. And then I'll save some pins on those topics.
Yep.
That way I can be like, you know what? I just saved something on Pinterest that looked relevant.
Hmm.
Here's a link. Because I don't ever like telling people, I don't know, figure it out on your own. I'm such
Hmm.
a
Yeah.
people pleaser that I'm like, you know what? I'll figure that out for you.
Yeah.
So instead of doing that, I like to at least send people a link to something.
Yeah.
So that's super helpful. That's a way that you can curate content. Now, along the same lines, because I know, again, we'll get a question on it. Um, should I pin my competitors' content? You don't have to, but I don't see my competitors as competitors. So I'm pinning Jana's content. I'm pinning Teresa's
In
content.
fact, here we are running a weekly live show
I
together, even though
know.
we both have Pinterest programs.
I'm
Yep.
pinning, Kate All's content. So
Yep.
Archana,
All the best people.
all the best people, I'm pinning their stuff
Yep.
because I'm not the best fit for every single person on the planet that needs Pinterest help. So
Yep.
along those lines, you don't have to, but if you do feel like you have a good buddy and you want to save some of their stuff, go for it.
Yeah. I'm going to write that down because I actually think that would be a fun video for us to do, a live stream. Should you pin your competitors' content?
Yeah.
Because we could have a whole conversation about it. Because in general, I always say yes. And then there's a couple of rules that come to my mind where I might
Yeah.
not. You know what I mean? So it's like we can talk about kind of the pros and the cons of that. I think it's really smart to think about this topic in conjunction too with other people's content and pinning it because it's such an interesting topic because what we don't want marketers, people who want to market on Pinterest, to do is think, oh, I'll just pin everybody else's stuff and somehow that's going to serve my business without you pinning your own content. You need your own content to pin.
Yeah.
Otherwise, don't come to us and say Pinterest isn't working, right? Um, but at the same time, um, it is okay to pin other people's pins. And in fact, there are certain times, like you said, when it's really helpful. And one of those is when you create a new board. So one thing, and I know you know this, Heather, but I'm just sharing this with anyone who might be
Yeah.
listening who might want a little hack is whenever I create a new board, whether that means I'm creating a new profile or I'm refreshing my own profile, or I just decided to create a new Pinterest board on my own profile because I need a new board to put some new content on because maybe I've been writing something that's, in a different direction and I need a new board. I always, when I start that board, I will grab the keyword. I make the keyword the title. I write a keyword optimized description for the board, which a lot of people skip, but you can't. I mean, you can, but you shouldn't. And then I do seed the board, SEED.
Yeah.
And yeah, and what I do is just I search that keyword and I look for, just like you said, pins from people that are reputable that are coming up that Pinterest already, I know Pinterest associates those pins with that keyword because I just searched that keyword.
Yeah.
And I add 4 or 5 other people's pins to that board. And that actually helps Pinterest know what that board's all about faster.
Hmm.
So it'll help that board and the pins that you put on that board that are your own content get distributed better to more people who, not just more people, but to people who are actually interested in that. Because a lot of what we have to do as marketers all the time on Pinterest is help Pinterest understand what our content is about,
Hmm.
what our pins are about, what our boards are about, what our profile is about. And the better we can do that for Pinterest, the better it can serve our pins to aligned people, people who are actually searching for the things that we offer.
Yeah.
So seeding a board like that is a really good practice too. So that's a little strategy that both Heather and I use that you can steal as well anytime you're creating a new board.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a great idea.
Mhm.
I was just doing it for the web design stuff the other day for WordPress because
Mhm.
there's just so many things that I know how to do, but I don't feel like creating content on.
Oh
So,
yeah. Yeah.
um,
I promised some examples, so while you're talking, I'm going to try to find some.
yeah. And someone actually asked in the chat, can you share an example? And I responded and was like specifically to creating a board.
Yeah, and actually, if that person wants to let us know what their space is, we could look for an example in your space or niche so that it's meaningful to you. We can do
Yeah.
that, or I can just look for an example based on one of my clients or something like that. Any other questions in the chat that we want to be?
Allison asked, which keyword research tool do you use? Is it just Pinterest? You've probably got another video and I may have seen it already. And I told her just Pinterest, the search bar, the trends tool, and the ads manager are the best places to go for keyword research. The
Yep.
trends tool is getting new stuff all the time. It seems to be getting better and better as the years go on. That's usually my first place that I'm going. I was actually just doing research today for a client build and I was using the trends tool. Favorite place to go if all else fails, you can start with the search bar. If you can't find things related to your niche, sometimes people can't find things related to their niche in the trends tool. And then the ads manager is a fantastic place. You can make lists really fast depending on your niche as well.
Yeah. Okay, so here's an example. Let's say, and it's interesting because depending on how niche your business is going to depend on like kind of what the hierarchy would look like. But here's just an example. Let's say that I'm creating a profile for a health coach who specializes in like menstrual health and fertility for women in maybe their like 20s and 30s.
Hmm.
And the reason I say that is that, if you have a certain health specialization, fertility might be a bad example, but a lot of times if you also specialize in a certain age group or something like that, that kind of tightens the niche a little bit. Um, but let's say that that's the person I'm building the profile for. As I'm doing keyword research, I'm finding fertility foods is being searched, fertility health, fertility trying to conceive, fertility diet. So maybe I say, okay, I'm going to have a board called Fertility and Trying to Conceive. And then, or let's say I have a board that's called, because this person doesn't just do fertility, she also does like menstrual health as well, right? And like maybe pelvic health and fertility. So maybe one of the boards that we do is fertility health or fertility. It could be fertility trying to conceive. And then underneath that, there's different like topics that roll up to that board idea. So if you have like a fertility health board, you could put things about fertility health, foods and fertility. I don't know if I like this idea of fertility boosters, but that's okay. I'm not going to judge. Maybe finding a fertility doctor because that's being searched fertility doctor, right? Whereas let's say another board you have for it's called fertility foods. And I'm noticing as I'm doing keyword research right now in real time that fertility diet is also being searched and fertility smoothie, which again, I'm not sure how I feel about that, but I'm not an expert, so I'm not going to judge if people are searching for it. Doesn't mean you can't meet them where they are and then teach them what they need to know. Um, but you could have a board that's fertility foods
Yeah.
and then other types of keywords that you use on that board and things that you pin could be about fertility diet choices, fertility smoothies, if you're going to go there, things like that. So that's an example of what I mean by kind of choosing like the broader category as the board topic and the board title, really.
Yeah.
And then using some of the other keywords as like subtopics underneath that board topic. So everything that you have that you want to pin about fertility diet choices, fertility smoothies, I roll, fertility, whatever. If it's something related to nutrition and food, it could go on that board that you're calling fertility diet or fertility foods.
Yeah.
So hopefully that makes sense and brings it to life a little bit for people.
Yeah.
Um, hmm.
What do you got?
I'm
Are you
I'm just
brainstorming?
looking. Yeah, I was looking for like another, maybe one more example, but yeah,
You
I
mean
haven't found it yet. So sure.
Um, so more for like B2B, like course creators, for example.
Hmm.
We'll take my account 'cause it's easy to do because I'm in there so often. But so I do Pinterest marketing and content strategy on my account. That's what
Hmm.
I talk about on my website and my YouTube channel.
Me too.
Wow. What? We have so much in common.
Oh, nice to meet you.
Um,
I'm Jana. We should be friends. We should be friends for like 8 or 9 years and have a show together.
we should. How do we get started? Where do I
And
sign?
stay fast friends from across the sea.
So I
All right, stop.
recently, oh no, you're fine. I recently was actually just strategizing new boards for my account, and
Mm,
I created a new one called Create a Pinterest Workflow. So everything
nice.
inside of that has to do with two things, the content I create and the products I sell.
Hmm.
Now, it doesn't necessarily, because this board is more broad, it doesn't necessarily matter what tools are involved or what platforms you might use or how you might create your workflow. So here on the channel, inside my membership, on my blog, I talk often about what my product called the Pinterest system. Pinterest system is available for Google Sheets. It's available for ClickUp, Notion. You could even do it in just like Apple products or Excel products if you wanted to. Whichever way you prefer to do it, you could do that. But notice it's called Create a Pinterest Workflow, not Create a Pinterest Workflow with Notion.
Hmm.
So I went a bit more broad with the board topic. So I
Yep.
can fit kind of all the content related to Pinterest workflows inside that board. Now, another example kind of that is more narrow on the flip side is my board that I just created a couple weeks ago called Pinterest Scheduling with Buffer.
Mm,
So this is specifically for any content that I create on the Buffer scheduling platform.
hmm.
Now, one person might come along.
Interesting choice.
I
Hmm.
know. One person might come along and ask, why didn't you just create a Pinterest scheduling board and then put Buffer on it? Well, I did, but I also noticed people were searching for that particular topic. Even if it was very small, I'm going to come up because I've created a board. Pinterest really prioritizes boards. So I created a board on it and now I have a board on it, even though I only probably have a handful of things. I have an opt-in, I've got a few YouTube videos, I've got a blog post. Well, I have a few blog posts. So I have a handful of content that I can put on this board, and it
Hmm.
might not be the most popular board, but when someone searches for it, my content will definitely come up.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a great strategy you can steal too, which is if there's a long tail keyword that you notice is really being searched and it's a very, very good fit for you, and you have, at least in my opinion, a couple of pieces of content that you can regularly pin, even if you're creating new images, but for the same piece of content on a regular basis, like
Yeah.
maybe a few times a month is what I mean by that, then it might make sense to have a whole board about that topic.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think that's another way to think about boards too, is you can go both like general and specific. So
Hmm.
that's a great example where it'd be like Pinterest scheduling tools and then Pinterest scheduling with Buffer.
Yep.
And then when you have a blog post that's all about your Pinterest scheduling with Buffer workflow or a YouTube video or whatever you're pinning, you can pin it actually to both of those boards.
Hmm. Exactly.
Yep. And that's one of the things that good boards give us the ability to do too. And again, like everything, we want to make sure you're not just taking this idea and like going and running with it and just like doing it so much that you're spamming the platform,
Yep.
please. But that is one of the things that you can do with your boards is make it so that you're structuring things so that most of your blog posts or your the YouTube videos or whatever content you're pinning can go on at least a few different boards.
Hmm.
And that gives you an opportunity to be able to create different images for that same piece of content that might hit a slightly different angle,
Yes.
like we've talked about in live streams before, and I know you talk a lot about in your uh, just channel trainings in general and in your membership. And it also gives you the ability to, I think that's all what I was trying to say, just basically different images and to like come at that. Oh, it also, I know what it is. It gives you an opportunity for that same blog post that you're pinning or YouTube video or whatever it is, podcast episode, etc., to maybe be discovered for slightly different adjacent keywords.
Yeah.
So that's part of the strategy that Heather and I are both employing too. It's a little bit of a 201 or a 301 strategy, but it's a good one. So you can steal that.
Yeah. I
Steal
love
all
that.
our board strategies. Steal them, steal them.
I really love that actually. And a bonus board strategy I want to tell you guys about is using board covers. It comes up probably once a month in my lives with my membership and my coaching office hours. How well board covers are working for people, the reach and engagement they're getting. I don't know how many years this will work for. It's been working for many years
Yep.
already, but they just stand out. So add board covers. You can go to my account. You can take a look at Jana's account. You can see how we're doing our board covers. I always use a link to a piece of content related to the board cover
Hmm.
and link it to my website or my products or my opt-ins or whatever, but they work and they work well. So add a
Hmm.
board cover. It also makes your profile look a little bit more cohesive. It's easy to scan. It's
Hmm.
user friendly. That's one of the best practices from Pinterest recently is as well as they're mentioning board covers as well as board banners. I'm not as hyped up on board banners because you can only create them, like you can only apply them on mobile. So that means you have to make them on desktop and then get them to your mobile phone.
Yeah.
Annoying. Not going to do it.
Not worth the effort, at least not right now.
Not right now. If they open it up for me to be able to do it on desktop, then maybe I'll do it. But
Mm.
for now, it's just not worth the effort I have to put in.
Yeah.
Board covers you can do on desktop. Historically, you've only been able to do them there. I don't know if you can even do them on mobile. Honestly, I couldn't tell you because I just don't use
Hmm.
that enough. But I do love them. and I just created a whole new batch recently, and they're so easy to do.
Yeah. So
So,
fun. Yeah, I like board covers too. We've gone back and forth over the years. Not really you and I. We've always kind of liked them and
mhm.
thought they were worth it, but we, meaning like the Pinterest manager, strategist, expert community, has gone back and forth over the years. For a while there were, when you and I were first new to this space and there weren't as many of us, there were some people saying board covers just like, weren't worth it. But
I've
you and I
always
have
found
always
them
liked
to
them.
work.
We've always liked
Yeah.
them. Yeah. Hmm.
Well, and something else to consider is the user experience, and
Hmm.
that's so in the new best practices that Pinterest released. They talk about user experience and making it super easy for people to see at a glance what you have on your profile and see at a glance what's on your board.
Hmm.
Um, so if you want to visit, yesterday's video, definitely head over to the channel. We'll link it in the description after this is all over, but I talk about that there, and then you can also click over from that description of that video and
Hmm.
read the best practices article for yourself because it's just linked there.
Perfect.
So, yeah.
I have a question for you. It's totally random.
Yeah.
I am looking at my pins right now and realizing there's a lot coming over from Instagram because I did that thing when we talked in that live stream about connecting Instagram to Pinterest to try to see how it worked for a while.
Yeah.
There's still no way to like bulk delete them, a bunch of them, is there, from
Oh,
my
yeah.
profile? How do I do that?
Yeah. So are they on a board?
You know what? I think they are because I had to choose a board to put them on when I was setting up the automation. So yeah, I
I'm gonna
believe
go
so.
to your profile here and
Oh
I
yeah, they're mostly on the content strategy tips for coaches and experts board.
okay, in that board, there is
Yep.
a function called organize.
Yes. Okay. Now I
And
know. I was trying to delete them all from my your pins page and that wasn't working because there's no way to do it there.
that's
I
exactly,
forgot that they were all going to a board. Thank you.
you're welcome. Yeah, click organize, choose what you want, and hit the delete.
You rock. Thank you. I had a feeling I was forgetting something.
Also, just to mention, Pinterest keeps doing this and I need to report it as a bug. I don't know why it's doing it, but your social board is sitting empty and it's public. So you might just want to go
Make it private, make it
make it
secret.
private. Yeah, and then you have a couple of other boards that look like, um, unless these are your branding photo shoots and you just want them to be public,
Mm-mm.
brand photo shoot ideas, you might want to make those secret.
Oh yeah. The problem with that is I had to share them with the photographer, so
You can share secret boards with a photographer. You just have to give them the link, the
they
share
don't
link.
have to okay, this is off topic. I'll ask you later.
Yeah.
All right. Trying to
Well,
think if there's anything else we want to talk about in terms of our board strategy. I think we've shared some pretty good things people can swipe and use for their own boards.
yeah. If you're in a more seasonal space where, boards might not get pinned to for a while, because let's say you have a slew of Christmas recipes, for example, it's okay for that board to sit and bake,
Mhm.
do its thing, and you'll put you'll put new content on it when the season comes back around again. So that's a
Mhm.
common question I get is, what do I do with the seasonal board? Pinterest says they want people pinning to boards frequently. Well, I don't think you're pinning Christmas stuff in April.
Mm-mm.
So, yeah.
Cool.
Ladybird said this was helpful.
Good.
Yes. Okay, so Ladybird, I will tell you how to share a secret board because this would probably be useful for Jana as well. When you go to your profile and you go to the board, click the share icon in the top right-hand corner and click copy link. Um, that is the easiest way to share a board. Now, that might be the public version of the board. You can also share a private board if you click keep it secret once you've created it. I believe in the add collaborators section. It's not too difficult to figure out. You just have to go click around in there and find that link. So, Jana, I can test this out with you later and I can maybe share it on Instagram later.
Okay, sounds good.
Cool. Anything else you wanted to add? Any other questions you guys wanted to ask. It's a couple people watching. No pressure, no pressure.
No, no pressure.
What are we talking about next week? We could do that while we wait for a second.
Yeah, I don't remember. Let me check. My computer's really slow because I'm on Zoom and I'm doing 8 other things.
Yeah,
Got all my tabs open. Hashtag all the tabs.
next
Oh,
week.
next week's a good one. This one's more on our content strategy kind of side, although it applies to Pinterest in some ways too. It's called Small Audience Blues. What
What?
content to create to grow your audience? I feel like this is going to be such a good one because I feel like in this online space, some of us have been around for a long time, like you and me, we're kind of OG. And then there are always new people joining the online space and coming into the online space. And it can be really discouraging when you're coming on and seeing people with big audiences. And these days, I think it's harder to grow an audience than it may have been when we were first, on the scene. So we're going to talk about that next week and give people some practical ideas for how to grow their audiences during, this basically era of online business.
Deal.
Okay.
I just had a thought on that and I'll save it. Um,
Okay.
I'll save it for next week.
Okay, perfect. I'll look forward to it.
All right, everybody. Well, I'm gonna leave you to it. Jana's probably going to
Go
um,
delete some Pinterest pins from my.
delete some Pinterest pins. So
I'm
we'll
only deleting things that are from Instagram, everybody, just so you know, things that are like multiple carousel slides. Normally, we don't do a lot of like deleting pins. That's not
know.
part of either of our strategies. But
Audrey asks a really good question here as we close. Um, and then we got another one from Vest Gardens. So I'll stick around for a second. It says,
I think
join
that's my
late.
friend Audrey.
Should boards that have nothing to do with the business always be private, i.e. home decor or recipes? I think so. Yeah.
Yep. Yes.
Beth,
And the reason for that, Audrey, just in brief, and we can talk about it more, but is that it confuses Pinterest. Remember, I was saying earlier how we want to do everything we can to make sure Pinterest knows what our pins are about, what our boards are about, what our businesses are about. So
mhm.
that really it kind of confuses the algorithm, if you will. It makes it harder for Pinterest to know who to show what to. So, yep,
Yeah.
good.
Then Vest says, would you use the same?
Bless you. Oh my
Would you use
gosh.
the same or other strategies for your website or social apps for YouTube? People look at my content, but not getting the amount of outbound clicks I want. I guess I'm wondering, Vess, if you mean generating outbound clicks from Pinterest to those places for YouTube specifically. So, a lot of Pinterest users are very top of funnel awareness. They are just figuring out what they want and considering options. So they're still so high in the funnel that a lot of the content that does the best on Pinterest in general of what I've seen historically are very much like how to plant a seed garden or seed garden best practices or seed gardens for whatever type of garden, for cactuses
Mhm,
or for perennials or whatever. So do some audience research on Pinterest and really dig into kind of what you have been posting about recently. Or like what is your perennial content? I saw that Im changed her brand to perennial content. I love it. I need to tell her so.
yeah.
Uh,
Wait, is M here?
I don't know if she's here or not.
Oh, okay. You just
Follow
made you
on
think of that. Okay.
Instagram.
The person who asked the question, is that their niche, the seed garden thing, or are you just using it
Best
as an
gardens?
example?
I think so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Got it. Okay. Got it. I was
I'm
like, oh, that was,
assuming it
yeah,
says
yeah. Okay.
gardens,
Okay.
but
Sorry. Yeah.
um like what are your pieces of like pillar content that you create about all the time or that you update all the time in your business and
Hmm.
start with those for boards. And then boards, then kind of the strategy follows with pins.
Hmm.
So we have really broad boards like perennial gardens for Minnesota or whatever, like wherever you're at. And then you can have more individual boards. So I don't know if you were here the whole time or not, and you heard the examples earlier where you could do more broad and you can do more targeted. Um, but go back and watch that and listen to that. The same goes for your pins. So a lot of people think they can only do how-to content or whatever, but you can also promote lead magnets. You can also promote um, products for pins. Pay attention to your pins and see what's getting clicked, what keywords are people searching for the most, like what's surfacing in your top pins section. And I think that's a really good place to start.
Solid, solid advice.
Okay, those two questions came in like hotcakes right at the end. So we're for real gonna close it down now because it's getting like hopping outside this door right now. There's a lot of noise
Oh,
out there.
is it your family?
I think I might need to go check on them.
Okay. All right. And remember, we're going to link some resources in the description of this video once it bakes for a couple minutes after we end this. So we'll put some Pinterest board playlist and Heather's most recent updated video about Pinterest boards in the
Oh,
description.
another thought, and I'll go pull it out, Vess, and we'll put it in the description of this video as well. Something that might be helpful for you in identifying what's working is my Pinterest analytics deep dive video, like how to do a deep dive into your Pinterest analytics. And I believe I even have a template you can download. I'll go pull that video out and I'll give it to Jana as well because she always does our descriptions. I can never
Yeah.
be trusted to remember to do them. So,
I got a workflow, baby. You
okay.
can count on
Well,
me.
we'll see you all back next week to chat about how
Okay.
to grow an audience when you're small in business.
See you then.
Bye. It is so weird. Okay, we're out.